another $800,000 in a Thai bank for a retirement visa, about $23,000 US, locked up and inaccessible. I didn't have that. Philippines was cheaper, more chaotic, less infrastructure, but their retirement visa was accessible. Minimum deposit of $20,000 in a Philippine bank, or a pension of at least $800 a month. I qualified. Malaysia had a program too, MM2H, but the requirements had recently skyrocketed, now requiring 500,000 ringgit liquid assets, about $115,000 US. Out of reach. I made spreadsheets. Cost of living comparisons, visa requirements, healthcare quality, expat community size. I was 77 years old, sitting in my Penang apartment overlooking the beach I swam in every morning, planning my escape like a refugee. The worst part was watching the life I built dissolve in real time. Lynn, the cafe owner, asked why I looked sadly. I told her I might have to leave Vietnam. She looked genuinely upset. Said I was a good customer, a kind man. Would I come back? I said I didn't know. She gave me free coffee that day. The woman at the fruit stand, when I told her, gave me extra rambutans and wouldn't let me pay. These small kindnesses from people who become part of my daily life broke something in me. I went to my favorite beachfront restaurant, the place where I celebrated birthdays and holidays with friends. The owner, a man named Hai, who always sat with me to practice English, asked about my visa situation. I told him. He shook his head, said it was happening to many foreigners. The government was changing policy. He said he understood why. Vietnam needed to develop, needed to attract serious investment, but he missed customers like me. Customers who came every week, who tipped well, who treated staff with respect. He'd missed the expat community in general. They've been good for his business, but business wasn't policy, and policy was clear. I started seeing for rent signs in my building. The Australian guy on the 7th floor left without saying goodbye. The French guy on the 12th floor, who I'd nod to in the elevator, disappeared. The building was bleeding foreigners. I asked the security guard if he knew why everyone was leaving. He shrugged, said something in Vietnamese I didn't fully understand, something about new laws, complicated. I contacted my daughter in Sweden, told her I might have to come back. She was sympathetic but practical. Said I could stay with her for a while, but her apartment was small. She had 2 kids. It wouldn't be comfortable long term. She'd help me find a place in Gothenburg, but we both knew what that meant. A studio apartment in a cheap area, my pension covering rent and basic expenses, the cold, the isolation. Everything I'd fled. I went to the beach one morning, my usual dawn swim, and floated on my back looking up at the sky turning pink and orange. And I felt the unfairness of it all settle into my chest like a weight. I'd worked 42 years. I'd paid taxes, followed the rules, been a good citizen. I'd earned this retirement. I'd found a place where my modest pension allowed me dignity and comfort and community. And now it was being taken away, not because I failed, but because I bet on the wrong country's stability. The 30-day deadline was approaching. I had to decide, leave and try to return, risking denial, spend my savings on a residency application with no guarantee, move to Philippines or Thailand or somewhere else and start over, or go back to Sweden and accept that the dream was finished. I sat in my apartment surrounded by 5 years of accumulated life, books and clothes and kitchen supplies and photos and the motorbike.
Nothing, I'm just eating my breakfast.
And I realized I couldn't take most of it with me. Whatever I decided, it would fit in 2 suitcases. Everything else would be sold or given away or left behind. The paradise I'd found wasn't permanent. It never was. I just convinced myself it could be. The final 3 weeks moved with a strange, slow speed of inevitable endings. You know what's coming, but you can't quite believe it's real until suddenly
How about you?
There's no timeline.
On car.
I started selling
What is your breakfast?
posted in the expat Facebook groups, everything must go, moving stale. The responses came fast. Other foreigners in the same situation scavenging from each other's dissolving lives. My rice cooker, $20. The fan I bought my second week here, $15. Kitchen supplies, clothes that wouldn't work in Swedish weather, books I'd read on the balcony during lazy afternoons, the small wooden Buddha statue I bought at a temple in Hoi An. All of it priced to move because I needed it gone, and everyone knew desperation when they saw it. A British guy bought my motorbike, a Honda Wave that had been my freedom for 5 years, $300, same price I'd paid. He showed up, looked it over, handed me cash in, dawn, drove away. I watched him disappear down the street and felt something break. That bike had taken me everywhere. Every temple, every long coast. It was more than transportation. It was autonomy. feeling of being mobile and independent in a foreign
My
country.
husband.
Now it was
He's
someone
my
else's.
husband.
The furniture I couldn't sell, I told the landlord to keep or throw away. The wooden table where I'd eaten 1,000 meals alone and with friends. The bookshelf I'd assembled badly, slightly crooked but functional. The chair on the balcony where I'd watched 5 years of sunsets. None of it
Where are you
mattered enough to
from?
ship, and I had nowhere to ship it to anyway. I hadn't decided yet where I was going. I narrowed it down to 2 options. Philippines
It's
or
okay, no problem.
Philippines meant continuing the dream in diminished form. Another Southeast Asian country. Cheaper than Vietnam now. Easier visa situation. Established expat community. I could get a retirement visa. Find an apartment in somewhere like Dumaguete or Puerto Galera. Rebuild some version of what I'd had here. It would work. Probably. But the thought exhausted me. Starting over at 67, learning new systems, new currency, new social dynamics, making new friends, or finding the Da Nang refugees scattered there. The idea of doing
milk
this again,
evaporated,
building a life on another country's
coffee
conditional
stick, and
tolerance,
little sugar.
knowing it could evaporate just like Vietnam did, I wasn't sure I had it in me. Sweden meant surrender.
Very nice.
Accepting that the retirement I'd wanted wasn't possible on my pension. Going back to the cold and the gray and the studio apartment and the loneliness. But it also meant stability. European Union citizenship rights, healthcare I understood, a language I spoke perfectly, proximity to my daughter and grandkids. It meant giving up on the dream, but gaining certainty. No more visa runs, no more immigration offices, no more waiting for the next policy change to upend everything. I couldn't decide, so I procrastinated by saying goodbye. The expat community was holding emergency meetups now, more frequent, smaller groups, everyone comparing notes on where they were going and how they were getting out. I went to one at a rooftop bar in Entwong, maybe 12 people, all of us looking shell-shocked. Robert had decided on Thailand, Chiang Mai. He said he had a friend there who'd help him get settled. Margaret was going back to Canada, moving in with her sister in Edmonton, trying to accept the loss of her $150,000 condo as an expensive life lesson. Thomas was trying Portugal, said it was expensive, but at least it was EU and stable, and they had a retirement visa program he might qualify for. A 72-year-old American named Bill said he was staying, just staying illegally, overstaying his visa, taking his chances. He said he was too old to start over somewhere else, and too poor to go back to Florida where he'd be homeless within months. He'd rather risk deportation than leave. We all looked at him with a mixture of horror and understanding. He was saying out loud what some of us had considered. Just stay. Become invisible. Hope they don't check. Live in the margins until something breaks. I asked what he'd do if they caught him. He shrugged, said he'd deal with it then. Maybe they'd find him, maybe they'd deport him, maybe they'd just tell him to leave, and he'd go to Cambodia for a week and sneak back in. He said it with the tired defiance of someone who'd run out of options and energy. I understood, but I also knew I couldn't do it. I'd followed the rules my whole life. The idea of living illegally, looking over my shoulder, waiting for a knock on the door, it would eat me alive. A younger guy, maybe 50, said he was going to Cambodia. Sihanoukville. Said it was cheap and chaotic, and nobody cared about visas. Someone else said Sihanoukville was all Chinese casinos now. Expats were leaving there too. The conversation went in circles, everyone sharing information that was half rumor and half outdated. We were refugees trading stories about borders and loopholes, and which countries weren't hostile then. Peter and Linda, the British couple I'd known since my first year, were at the meeting. They'd already left once, gone to Portugal, but they'd come back to pack the rest of their things. We sat in a corner away from the group, and they told me the truth about leaving. It was harder than they'd expected. Portugal was beautiful but expensive. Their pensions didn't stretch like in Vietnam. They felt poor again. They missed Da Nang every day. Missed the warmth, the affordability, the beach, the life they'd built. But they couldn't come back. That was the visa situation. So they were making it work in Portugal, trying to find new routines, new friends, trying to convince themselves it was better even though it wasn't. Linda started crying quietly. She said she'd never expected to love a place like she'd loved Da Nang. She retired thinking she and Peter would travel, see the world, not settle anywhere. But Vietnam had become home in a way England never was. And now they were exiled from home, displaced in their late 60s, grieving a life they'd lost not to death or disaster, but to policy changes they had no control over. Next week, I went to my favorite places one last time. Lynn's Cafe for morning coffee. She made it the way I liked and refused payment. Told me to remember her when I thought of Vietnam. leaving. She gave me extra pork and wouldn't take my money. I ate on the seawall watching motorbikes stream past and wondered if I'd ever eat bambi this good again. I went to the beach at dawn, my ritual swim one last time. The water was perfect, warm and calm, the sun just breaking the horizon. I floated on my back and tried to memorize the feeling. The weight of salt water holding me up, the sound of small waves, the sky turning colors I'd never seen in Sweden. I thought about all the mornings I'd done this, hundreds of them, the routine that had made me feel alive and healthy and young. I'd swim in a cold public pool if I swam at all, chlorine and crowded lanes and fluorescent lights. I dried off and sat on the sand and watched the city wake up. Fishermen bringing in boats, street cleaners sweeping the promenade, early morning joggers and other expats doing their own goodbye rituals, I assume. A Vietnamese woman in her 60s doing Tai Chi near the water. This was the Da Nang I'd fallen in love with. Peaceful, beautiful, functional, affordable. A city that had let me be part of it for 5 years and was now asking me to leave. My landlord came by the apartment to do a final inspection. He was polite, businesslike, returned my deposit minus a small deduction for some scratches on the floor. He asked where I was going. I told him I still wasn't sure. He said many foreigners were, just matter of fact. The economic relationship was ending. That's all it had ever been. After he left, I stood on the balcony looking at the view I'd woken up to for 5 years. The South China Sea stretching to the horizon. The curve of the coastline. The high-rises going up constantly. The city growing and changing and moving forward without me. I thought this view was mine. I thought I needed it, paid for it, deserved it. But it was never mine. I'd rented it temporarily.
Motivational, playing your video here. Okay. For your, last upload 1 day ago. Kal nahi aji, agar sindahi. It's difficult to read. Sorry. Playing. Actually,
Done choosing.
okay.
Choosing.
Paradise. That's what I thought I was moving to. White sand beaches, cheap rent, beautiful women who appreciated a good man. A place where my money would last forever, and I could finally live the life I sold everything I owned in America, cashed out my 401k, paid the penalty, packed my bags, and moved to the Philippines with $127,000. That was supposed to last me nothing less than 15 years. It lasted 3. I'm Donald, the streets of Manila, with just $340 in my pocket and a one-way ticket home that I had to borrow from the U.S. Embassy. This isn't a story about getting scammed by a stranger. It's worse than that. It's a story about scamming yourself, about ignoring every single warning sign because you're so desperate to believe that someone, somewhere, finally sees value in you. No one sees back. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. Very late. Everything's gone. Let me take you back to where this all started. Detroit, Michigan. February 2019. I've been driving for FedEx for 23 years. The same route, the same packages, the same customers who barely looked up when I rang the doorbell. My alarm went off at 4:45 every morning. Same time, every day. I dragged myself out of bed, make instant coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, and drive to the depot in the dark. Load the truck, check the manifests, hit the road by 6:30, repeat until my knees gave out, or my back finally snapped, or I just stopped caring. I was 52 years old, divorced twice. The first marriage ended when I was 26. We got married too young. Marriage lasted longer, almost 12 years, but my God, it felt like 50. She wanted kids. I couldn't give her any. Tried for years, doctors, tests, treatments, nothing worked. It was crazy, I know, but eventually she stopped looking at me the same way, stopped talking to me the same way. And one day she just said, I can't do this anymore. So she left. And I stayed in that one bedroom apartment in Dearborn that smelled like old carpet and someone else's cooking. I'd come home after 10-hour shifts, microwave something, and sit in front of the TV until I fell asleep in my recliner. That was my life. 52 years old, no wife, no kids, no tangible savings to speak of. Just a job that was slowly killing me, and an apartment that felt like a waiting room for death. And that's when I ran into Danny. I hadn't seen him in maybe 8 years. We'd worked together back in the early 2000s, back when we both still had longer hair and hope. I was at the Mayor on Woodward Avenue, buying frozen dinners and cheaper beer when I heard someone call my name. Don Martinez? Holy shit, man. I turned around and barely recognized him. Danny looked different, tan, relaxed, 10 years younger. Danny, what the hell are you doing back in Detroit? Just visiting my daughter for a few weeks, he said, grinning. I live in the Philippines now, have for the past 5 years. The Philippines. I'd heard about it, seen videos online, but I didn't know anyone who'd actually done it. You serious? Dead serious. Best move I ever made, man. We grabbed coffee at the Coney Island across the street, and for the next 2 hours, Danny painted me a picture of paradise. He told me about his house, 3 bedrooms, ocean view, maid service twice a week. Rent, he said, $300 a month. Try finding that in Detroit. He told me about his wife, 28 years old, beautiful, treated him like the president. She cooks every meal, Don, takes care of me, doesn't nag, doesn't complain, she's just happy. He told me about the cost of living. Dinners for $2, beers for 50 cents, massages for $5. You could live like royalty over there on your pension, he said. Hell, you could live on half of what you're spending now and have twice the life. He even He showed me photos on his phone. Him and his wife on a boat. Him at a beach bar. Him sitting on a balcony overlooking the ocean. In every photo, he looked genuinely happy. Not fake happy. Not, I'm trying to convince myself, happy. Just at peace. I'm telling you, Don, he said, leaning in like he was sharing a secret. If you're tired of this shit, and I know you are, there's a better way. You just gotta have the balls to do it. I went home that night and couldn't sleep.
Throw
I
it
kept
there.
thinking about Danny's
Throw
words.
it there.
There's a better way.
Observe.
I
Yes.
started researching. Typed retire in the Philippines into Google and fell down a rabbit hole I'd never climb out of.
Darling, could I talk to you a little bit?
What?
I need to go talk to you.
No.
I know you don't want to come.
Honey, please.
You have to respect me.
Honey, please.
Then I have to go back to Australia.
Bye, guys. I will end my live. Bye-bye, everyone.